Okay, welcome back then. So in this second session, we're going to look at the back-end construction of our site. To do that, we need to look at three super global variables that will be used within PHP. We've got our post variable, our get variable, and our session variable. So let's have a little bit of an understanding as to what each of these does. Post then is like sending a traditional letter, hence the word post. You write your letter, you stick it in an envelope, give it a location or an address to go to, and you send it. No one can see the content of that letter without opening it, and it should be secure in getting to its destination. If it's not, if it's opened, you can see it's been tampered with. Get is like a postcard. All of the information is available up front. Everyone can see the information, it is plainly visible. And then that last one I talked about then was our session. Session is sort of like a locked diary. You can put entries into it and know that they are going to be secure and help you, or you can go back and revisit them whenever you like. With our session data then, it is stored on our server and it can be used to recall information to allow us to have secure areas set up within our websites. So that's three separate super globals that we need to focus on. What we're going to do is go straight back into Dreamweaver. So let me get that open on my screen then. And continue with the development we've already put in place for our online CV. So you can see here our detections put in place. We have everything we need to have in place. And if I go back into my folder structure, open UAMP and load UAMP, we should be able to access our local host and get our CV back on our screens. So that's started, that's running, brilliant. Let me just go to browse www. And here's Isabel's CV. Now we're going to be setting up a new set of pages to work with Isabel's CV. And one of the pages we're going to set up from the starting point is going to be a login page. So I'm going to create a new page here. It's going to be a PHP page. I'm going to click on create and it's going to come up and create that page for me. I've got my doc type, I've got those basic elements here. I'm just going to enter to get below these a second. And at the top here, start with my PHP tag. Now, as it stands right now for my login page, there isn't a massive amount of PHP I need to put in place, but we will perhaps look at putting error messages and other bits and pieces. What I do want from my index is to steal the head section to make sure that we're following the same bootstrap elements within our page. So I'm going to replace that top section. What did I highlight? HTML down to head. So all of these here, I'm going to paste that there. When I'm in the body section here then, I need to start off and put a container in place. Now I know that's quite small, so let me just zoom into that for a second then. I am going to get rid of some of this blank space and leave just a basic PHP at the top here for a second, see if we need any of that as we go along. So I'm going to put in a div and it's going to start with a class and it's going to be container. And that is going to be my basic setup. Inside my container then, I am going to want a div and it is going to be a class of row. And as well as my row class, for now at least, I'm going to start off with a div of class equals call md12. So I've got my elements in place there. If I save that then, I'm going to hit the Control S to save it. It wants to know what I want to call it, and I'm simply going to call it login.php. So it's my login page. And what I'm going to say is that on this section here, I want to have a form, and my form has an action. Let's not be lazy. Action equals something. I haven't decided what just yet. And my method, this is where one of our super globals comes in place, is equal to post. That means that anything I send from within this form section here, I want it to be secure. So inside my form, I want some inputs. First input is going to have a type, and the type of input here is going to be equal to text. That's going to be for my username. I have to give it a name so that I know what I'm referencing when I'm calling it later on. And I'm going to call it username. So that's nice and simple. I'm going to do the same thing for input. And I'm going to say type this time around is for my password. So if I set it as a type of password, it will come up as blank. The name is simple as well. It's going to be password. And I'm going to put in one final input. And that input is going to be a type of submit. So that means that my form will be finished and sent. And its value, this is how I change what is written inside my submit button, is equal to, in this case, login. So those three are in place. You may well have noticed I don't have end input tags. That's perfectly fine. And if I go back onto here, put /login.php, I get my login form. Very basic, doesn't look like anything, doesn't have anything in place to help me. So let's stylize that a bit more. We want to have a P here, and our P tag is going to say username, so I know what it is. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go password, and swap the W and O around, save that, refresh my page. I've now got username, password, logins on side here, so I'm just going to put in place here a break tag, or even 2 break tags, just to put it down to the next line. And there's my basic login page. Now, we've been using Bootstrap throughout all of this, and Bootstrap does have elements of classes that can be used. So I say class equals form, and it's generally form control. And you can tailorize that however you want to, but a basic form control, if I put that in place on all of these, save it, and refresh my page, comes up with a bit nicer, fills my screen, it looks how it should do. Let's see if we can apply that as well to our P tags. So let's take the whole, I think I did take the whole class. I did. And when I refresh that as well, not quite what I want. So let's not have it on my P tags. There we go. So there's our basic form controls. I haven't told you what to do with my post at the moment. So if I do click on this login button, it doesn't actually do anything. What it actually does is send it back to itself. What I'm going to do to try and keep things simple is I've got my login page here. I've got PHP at the top here, and actually I don't think I need any of that. And we got our title there. So yeah, perhaps I should. Okay, because at the moment, if I look back on this, my title does say a broken title. What we could simply do is steal from the top of this our require connection and our basic query. And now, when I save that, if I go back in and I refresh it, it now says Isabel Jones, because it's using that query we did previously to pull that information through. Now, when I'm done my login, what I'm actually going to do is in this section here, I'm going to put in a button for a signin.php. And it's going to post the information to signin.php. And if I click on this right now, nothing will happen. If I click it a second time, it tries to go to signin.php, but as you can see, it cannot find it. I haven't yet created that page. So what am I going to do? Create that page. So let's save this a second. Oh, wrong command. I want Control Shift S, and I want to have sign in. signin.php, and save that. Now, let's zoom this back in a second then. I've got my signin.php, that's going to signin.php, and that should all be in place. My sign-in page doesn't actually need any HTML whatsoever, so I can get rid of that. We're working purely here on PHP. We are going to be using something like this, but let's go through it first. So I've got my require connection. I need to have my require connection to allow me to connect to my database. And what I'm going to do is print R, which will allow me to see what's happening, everything in this super variable called post. And let's just save that. So now, if I go back a page and go back to my login page, so I'm on localhost.login.php, I put in hello, and I put in 1, 2, 3, 4. When I log in, I get username hello and password 1234. They are contained within that superglobal called post. If I change this to get, so underscore get, remember that is the open variable that is available to anybody. When I refresh it, I get an empty array. Because when we assign variables in get, we have to assign them in a different way. We don't send them through a PHP script like we have done with our post, but rather tag them onto the end of our address using the question mark, and then we can say user name equals 1234 ampersand password equals guest. Now, when I refresh that page, they are now pulled through from my address bar. But storing the password in the address bar in plain text isn't exactly secure. So that's why we use the post super variable rather than the get super variable. So, a little bit of background there, covering those super variables that are being put in place. We know that username and password are our users here, so we can bring this back. We know we're getting that information because we can post it here. We now need to go into Heidi SQL. If I go into the online CV, Heidi SQL, get this open and connect to my database, we need to make a change to our database. In my database then, we have all of these different elements, and you can see I've added a table here for users. In my users table, I have ID, first name, last name, date of birth, and about me, but I don't have anywhere any information about the user's username and password. So let's add those fields in. Username, and that is going to be a type of varchar again. And we're going to add in password, which is also varchar. Now, realistically, we don't want to give any sort of cap limit on passwords or usernames. And in a second, when I go into my data, I'm going to add in a username and password. And I'm going to put in, who is it? Isabel, isn't it? Isabel, and the password is going to be 1234. Now, I've got to say, if this was a real website that was publicly available for people to access, then you would need to do something a lot securer with your password than currently storing it in plain text. That is not good practice. As this is a basic demonstration, I'm going to carry on and not worry about overcomplicating with salting the password, hashing the password, or anything like that. I'm just going to keep it in what's known as plain text. So, I've got there, I know Isabel's username and password. Isabel's username is Isabel, her password is 1234. I need to perform a query on my database. It is a similar sort of query to what we do here. We need our SQL statement, we need to query our database and check the results that come back. So I'm going to put in $SQL equals, and our query is going to say select all, so star, from users. So that's our table. We just double check, capitalize it. There we go. Users, where username is equal to, and then outside of our PHP tags, I'm going to say add $_post username. And I'm going to come back into it and I say and password is equal to, and just the same way I'm going to say $_post and check the password. Now let's echo that out and see how that looks. So if I go back a page and here I want Isabel and 1234. Click on login. I've got select star from users where username is Isabel and password is 1234. If I run that in my query selector and I click on run, I get an error because it doesn't understand the term Isabel. What we need to have is single quotations, and it'll try and help us here, so you've got to be very careful how you deal with these, wrapped around my username, and single quotations wrapped around my password. So let's jump to the end here as well. and save that. Now, if I refresh this page, resubmit my data, I get the same thing but with a single quotations now in place. And if I post that query into Heidi SQL, when I run it, I get one record back. So I know my SQL works. I can get rid of my post for a second because that's confusing things. I can get rid of this echo because we no longer need it. I'm going to say user equals MySQLi underscore query, and it is the query on the connection, and it is the $SQL that we are querying. We want to know with our user here then how many results we've had back. So I'm going to say num results. And let's not forget we need dollar signs there. Equals MySQLi underscore num, I believe it's rows. And then I need to give it user. And if I echo $num results, what I should see when I try and log in with Isabel's correct details, as I've got here, is the number 1. Which is brilliant. If I go back a page, I got Isabel and I'm going to put in the wrong password, I should get 0. So now we can check against our database to see if we are a logged in user or not, or if we are a user who should have special privileges. So what I'm going to say is, if num results is equal to 1, that's when I wanted to do something. And what I wanted to do is store in session, and I'm going to say safe user is equal to 1. So I'm setting my safe user to 1. I'm going to say else, and I'm going to say $_ session, and I don't actually need to set the session there. I want to destroy the session there, so I'm going to say session _ destroy. Now that's going to add a variable called safe user with a variable 1 in my session. But I've not referenced session anywhere else just yet. And if I run this piece of code, I get no errors, but I get no warnings or anything else. It's not going to tell me that I've missed a really important step. So do be careful. That really important step is, above my require, I need to tell it to start my session. _start. Now, I've started my session there. And every time I want to use my session, I have to start my session across the top. I've got my session data in place, and if the details are wrong, I destroy that session. If I add a new page in place then, and that page is going to be my admin page, I need to do a header command that will allow me to set the location. So I'm going to say location, and is going to be /admin.php. So now, when I log in, as long as I've got my location command right, and I forever get my location commands wrong, so do excuse me if I don't, it should set session to safe user, then redirect me to my /admin PHP page. If I go back, Isabel 1234, and log in, it's gone to my admin.php page, so my header worked perfectly, but obviously that doesn't exist. If I got the details wrong, I want to be header redirected, so use the location, back to my login page. Now, if I go back a page to my login page, and I put in the wrong password, it brings me back to my login page. So that's all working perfectly fine. We have it set up so we can now log in to our safe user session. What I'm going to do, save this page as It starts my session, it connects to my database. I then want to perform a check, but it's not going to be a query against my database like this. So I'm going to get rid of this query from my database. And I'm going to say instead, if my session safe user is set to 1, then I'm okay. Otherwise, destroy the session, send me back to my login page. Now, if I leave that there, I'm going to end up in a redirect loop. So I'm just going to remove that for a second. And I'm going to echo, so I can see it logged in. So now, if I go back and I log into Isabel, I put in 1234, it takes me to admin and says logged in. If I go back to my login page and I use the wrong password, it takes me back to my login page, and this is where it gets interesting, because if I try to go directly to my admin.php page, it takes me back to my login page. I cannot load this page if I am not considered a safe user. And only when I am considered a safe user can I get in to see anything within this page. So in that section then, we have created a very basic, because we do not hash, salt or encrypt our password, login system. But because we have created our basic login system, we can start to put in place elements that we want to use going forward. For example, if I go back to my index, re-steal that very quick search, and then I go to my login page and steal this section, so all the other code, and place it underneath, it will create what looks like my login page, and we'll be able to put information into it. Now, instead of having my username, I'm going to have first name. Instead of having my password, I'm going to have last name, and they're going to be given the corresponding correct title. So first name in the name box, last name in the last name box. It is no longer type of password, it is now simple text. It is still form control. It is still a submit, but instead of logging in, this time we're going to be saving our data. So I've saved that form there, put that in place. I do need to add some sections to these two here. But right now, if I log in, so Isabel, I use 1234, I get first name and last name in place. And I can change those and save it and do something else with it. If I tried to at the moment, it would try and go back to my sign-in page, and it'll give me errors and take me back to my login page as a logged out person. But we're going to fix that in a second. What I'm going to do first, though, is I'm going to add in a value command here that says that her first name is a PHP command, and I'm going to echo out whatever is stored in user at position first name. And I'm going to repeat that process into the box for my last name. And I'm going to put that there as last name. And save that section. Something else changed then, but I'm not sure what. And now I get Isabel and Jones. So I've got her basic details coming through. If I want to put in place a box for the About Me section, I would have to use, instead of having just a simple, so I'm going to put in my P tag to start with, and here I'm going to say About Me, I'm going to then have to put in a text area. And that text area's name is going to be About Me, and I would end my text area in a standard fashion. I wouldn't use the value command, but I would use my PHP echo and put About Me in place and save that. Now when I refresh this page, I get a About Me box. It's not very big, it's not very useful at this stage, but we can customize that a bit further. For example, we haven't given it its class. And I'm going to say form, and I want it to be control again. And when I save that and I refresh it, it now has a bit of a better setup to it. Still not amazing, but I can definitely work with this and use it in a much more useful way. What I can do is set in here, as well as my form control, num rows equals, say, 10, and that should increase, maybe not then, it's not num rows, perhaps it's just simply rows. That should increase the height of my box. So it's not num rows, it's simply rows, and I can put that in place. So I get my basic text editor box where I can put in anything I need. And I can now set those out. And I don't know why I'm doing this because I know I haven't done my save part yet, but you can see how it looks in a much nicer way. So I've got all of that in place. I now need to update my save button to allow me to save this information. In fact, actually, I need to put one more input box in place because I missed over it. I jumped over it, and that is for the date of birth. DOB, text area, I'm going to say date, and it's going to be DOB. Now, let's refresh that, and we've got her date of birth there, and I can choose from a date selector, and it'll put that in place. It's not putting in place her date of birth because I haven't provided it correctly. In here then, I should have DOB, and let's save that, refresh this, and see if it puts it in place. So straight away, it's picked up, no matter what I've done, and put it in place correctly. All of this is there. We just now need a save button to be able to update this in our backend database. I'm going to change it from there, from sign in to update user. Save that, and like with my sign in section where I've got this information, I'm going to reuse it here, say update user.php. Let's zoom in. We still need to make sure that we are a logged in user so that non-logged in users can't do anything with it. We still need to require a connection, and just like with our admin page, we're going to check to see if we're a signed in user and redirect ourselves outwards if not. So that's our starting point, and that's going to be our pretty big starting point for most things so far. So once we have done that, then we've got our information, we've got that in place. We don't need, in this case, to select information, but we want to update information. We don't need to return something, but we do want to use this SQL command and this basic query here. I'm going to say update, let's capitalize it like I have been, and we want to update user, and I want to set, and this is where we're going to put in the different areas. Now I have in place user ID, and if actually that had where user ID equals 1, that's perfect. We want to keep that where anyway. So I've got update user, I'm going to say set, and that should realistically be capitalized to make it clearer. I'm going to say set first name equals, and I'm going to put in single quotes. I'm going to put in last name equals, I'm going to put in date of birth equals, and then finally about me equals, and put that there. I do need a comma after these so that it knows they're separate. So it's going to update the users, set the first name to something, last name to something, date of birth to something, and about me to something, where my user ID is 1. These somethings are all going to come from my post information, because I'm going to send it some information. Say $ underscore post equals, and in that post section there then, what I'm going to say is first name, as I said earlier. Now I'm going to copy this and paste it throughout these and just very quickly change last name, date of birth, and about me, and save that. Now I'm going to post to this page, and then I'm going to go header location, and I'm going to come back to my admin page. So if I look at this page here, refresh this page, and double check on my admin page, I've changed my form, which I don't think I did. Yes, I did. Update user, post, that's perfectly fine. Here we go then, Isabel Jones. If I click on save, it doesn't like something. Line 7. Let's have a look. Line 7. On the right page. I didn't think it would, but I thought I'd give it a try anyway. This post information here is correct, but it should be outside of a quotation and joined using the full stops. And now that red arrow has moved on to the next line. So highlight this, speech marks around it. I want to join it using the and, or the Boolean and symbol. And I'm just repeating the process all the way down, making sure I've got those full stops and those speech marks in place. So speech marks around the whole thing, full stop to tell it to join with everything. No more red arrows on the side there. Save this, and if I was to refresh this page, nothing's changed. But now, if I do this, he says, hoping it will work, I should be able to save it, and it should have updated. Strange how it's going back to there. Let me just change this to Isabel, say, Smith. Save. It's gone back to Jones. Something is not right in this section here then. So rather than redirecting, I'm going to stop that for a second. And I'm going to echo $_ underscore on a $ SQL and see what it's doing. So here it is. About me didn't submit for a starting point. It's updating first name, didn't submit properly, last name's there, and they're there. So partly glad it didn't work, because otherwise it'd have got rid of some elements. First name, I've misspelled. Let's see, my text area on my admin page is about me, lowercase m, whereas I've used in my update here, capital M. So let's retry that. And now I get the right thing there. Okay, I think it's this final comma here is going to give me an error. So if I was to copy the whole of this, not save it, copy it, and paste it into a query in Heidi, when I run it, I get an error on line 1. Well, line 1 doesn't really help. Let's say if we can reformat our SQL. No, it's not going to do that. Never mind. Let's go back in. I'm fairly certain it is that final comma. I don't need that comma. Let's copy it. Let's refresh our page. We no longer have that final comma. And let's see if I can run it. Brilliant. It says 1 row affected. Done. So if I go back, have that redirect in place, and back into here, you can see that if I change this now to say Smith and save it, it's now Isabel Smith. And in our title page at the top here, it also says Isabel Smith. It no longer says Jones. If I go in here and I say Jones and I save it, it comes back to Isabel Jones. So by using that form, I can create a submission element that I can put in different sections for different elements and update how they look. Which looks pretty basic, does the job quite nicely. I want to just put in another little section. So if I go back onto Isabel's main page, Isabel Jones here, we've got her about me, we've got her contact details, we've got the ability to update her name and the about me. We need to now go through and add in the ability to update contact details, skills, and all the other bits and pieces. And realistically, to do that, we're going to need a menu bar. So I'm going to go into Bootstrap, and I'm going to steal directly from the documentation a basic example on all the docs of a menu bar. So, actually, in fact, it's not a menu bar, it's a nav bar I want. And if I come down here, we can see how a basic nav bar looks. Copy it, and on our admin page, above all of our forms and everything, inside of our container, I'm going to paste a nav bar. And if I'm on my page, if I go to /admin.php, you'll see my nav bar. From that navbar then, let's have a look and see what's there. To start at the bottom, we have our search in a form. Well, we don't need that, we're not going to be searching through, so I'm going to delete that. We then have the option to use a disabled link. Well, we're not going to need a disabled link. We've got a drop-down menu. Okay, we could possibly use a drop-down menu for something, but I don't quite think I need it for this one, so I'm going to get rid of it and keep just in place our basic homepage and a basic link setup. So if I save that and refresh it, you'll see most of them disappear. I'm going to go in, I'm going to change navbar to say online CV. I'm going to change the home button to say admin, my admin page, and then I'm going to change the link to say skills to start. Now, if I refresh this, we get these different elements. Online CV will take me to my admin page, and we can see where we're going down the bottom here. I just want to say my online CV is going to go to the base of my site. The admin page is going to go to the base of my site /admin.php. I'm then going to take this link, I'm going to copy it. I've got skills, I'm going to put in education, I'm going to paste another one, I'm going to say employment, and what else did we need to update on our CV? So what have we got? We've got employment there, we've got our education there, we've got skills, we need contact details. So on here then, I'm going to paste one more and say contact details. And the last one is going to be a nice simple function called log out. So let's refresh our admin page. Let's go back to it, and we've got all of these across the top. Our log out button, this one over the side here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it to go to a page called /logout.php. Now that's going to be the easiest script we write. I'm going to take my login page here, actually my sign-in page I'm going to take, I'm going to save it as logout.php, and yes, again I've got to zoom in because I don't know why Dreamweaver doesn't want to save my zoomed in state, but never mind. All I'm going to do is tell it to start the session, so it knows it's working with the session. I want it to destroy the session, so that session no longer exists, and then I want it to take me to my login page. So my log out button, which is over here, if I click on it, it takes me to my login page, and if I try to go back to my admin page, it tells me I can't. So let's log in as Isabel, and password is 1234, log in, and there we are, back in our login page. We have our basic details in place, and our buttons here that don't do anything just yet. So let's go through our skills button then. First thing we're going to do is take our admin page, because a lot of them are now going to follow the same structure. Let's get rid of all of these. We've got our admin page here, and it has our menu system, which we do need to have, so I'm actually going to tidy this up ever so slightly and just tab it in. There we go, but I can minimize it using this arrow shape. And then I'm going to save my admin page and save as skills.php. We want our basic setup where we check our session has started, get connected to our database, perform our search to get our basic details to put at the top here, and then we have our menu bar. We come down to this section here then, and this is where we're going to start changing some elements up. But first, in our admin section, we're going to go into where it says skills on a nav bar, which I've just hidden and then couldn't see where I hid it to, and put this in as /skills.php. Don't forget the dot to make sure it uses the root document. So rather than having our first name and last name for our skills, we do want our submit button. We're just going to pull these through and perform a quick query. Now the query we're actually going to perform will work a lot like our index page query did. So back into our index page just to get that, and find the skills section, and let's take all of this here. So I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste it there. But rather than echoing them out as LIs, what I want to do is I want to echo them out into their own boxes so that they can be put in place. And I'm going to have an input. It's going to be a type of text. So I'm going to put in text. It's again going to have a class of, and this time the class is going to be form control. And it's going to have its value equal, and this is where we're going to break out of things and go into our skill, come back into it, and just have our single quote. Now looking at that then, if I go on and I go to my skills page, which I got to refresh this first of all, and now click onto skills, I get all of the skills that she's listed. Don't look very pretty at the moment. We can add in our margin top commands like we did previously, MT2s. So we've got that there. And if I refresh this now, they have a bit of space between them. Now, that's brilliant. I need to update my skills. So instead of update user, it's going to say update skills.php. But I haven't yet given it a name, and there's a reason for that. I glossed over it for a perfectly good reason. What I need to do in here is give them all the same name. The name is going to be skill. But if I did that, and I save that for a second, and I create the update skills page, so again, easiest way would be to update my users update page, save this as update, and we're going to say skills.php. It's got everything I need to have in place. All that would do would go back to skills instead, and this query, this SQL, would be different. But if I just break that a second, I won't cause any issue. And I print _r, that post super variable we talked about earlier, and we'll see how this looks. So there it is. That's all in place. If I click Save Skills, it's given me one skill in place. It's given me a bunch of other errors at the moment on line 7, but that's because these variables don't exist. I might as well have just deleted that. And now if I refresh this, we'll have less errors and you can see a bit clearer. I forgot to... There we go. I only get the one skill. I only get, actually, my last skill. No matter which one it is, it's always going to be the bottom skill that I get. Because what's happening here, in here, is each time it echoes and gives it a name, that skill overrides whatever value it is. But if I put a square bracket in place after the word skill, it turns skill into an array. So now if I refresh this page to apply that change and click save, I actually get a skill array that has all of my skills in place. And what I can do in my update skill is provide a loop, so I can say for each, like we've done previously, underscore post, and then put in place skill as, and then I can say $skill. I can get it to echo, and I'm going to say $skill dot, and I just want it to break so we can see the differences. And refresh. Yes, reload it. So I get branding, graphics, SEO, and marketing, and web design was there as well. So now I get all of my previous skills that are there. And in my database, in my skills table, I've got skill, and they're in place. So all of that's in place. Everything is how we want it to look. what we're going to do is look at how we can add another one in place. First thing we're going to do is on our save, so here we've got our printing and all those bits and pieces in place. We are going to put in place an SQL command that says that we want to delete from, and it's the skills table, where user ID equals 1. And then we're going to run that query. And I'm going to just call this delete for a second there. And actually, in fact, I don't have to call it anything because we don't want to take back its response. So it's going to go through, user ID is 1, it's going to delete all of those off. And then, for each of these, what it's actually going to do, rather than echoing, I'm going to insert them. So I'm going to say, insert into skills, and I'm going to say user ID equals 1. Sorry, my bad. User ID there, and we'll say skill there. Let me just double check it is skill and not skills, yeah. And I say values, and I'm going to open up 1 comma, and then again single quotations with our speech marks and our full stops, and I'm going to say $_ I don't want to post, sorry, my bad there, that's just going to be skill. Let me come back in here and close that bracket off, and then run that query. So what it's going to do, I don't need to print that post anymore, is come in, start my session, check I'm a safe user, if so remove all of the user IDs 1, then for the posted elements loop through them all, I don't need to echo them, and it's going to insert them into my skills table. Once it's done that, and it's looped through all of them and inserted all of them, it's going to take me back to my skills page. So now, if I save that, and I go back here, web design, branding, graphic design, SEO, marketing, if I hit save, exactly the same. If I said marketing 2, hit save, it is now marketing 2. And actually, on my local host, it says marketing 2. I have updated them through the method of deleting it and then reinserting it. But I'm still stuck with the same 5 skills. If I wanted to insert a skill, add a new skill, I couldn't do that at the moment. What I do need to do is go to my skills page here a second and just add to my form control, empty, margin top 2, save it, and get a bit of a space. Much nicer. So I've got my skills in place, but I am limited. I cannot go on. I can't add any more skills in place. That's fine for a second. We're going to leave that as it is. And that same principle, that same effect, that same job will work with everything else in our database. So I've got skills and update skills. I'm going to change this to contact details and save that as contact details.php. Now the difference here being, instead of saying that for everything from skills, I'm going to use the contact details table, and I'm going to get all those information bits, and I'm going to tell it that I wanted to loop through all of my skills. It gets me the associated array for each skills there, and I wanted to display it. If I go into my admin page, change my contact details section, and save that, on my admin page, contact details, I can bring this up. But it's not happy, it's not satisfied with what we're doing here in contact details. I'm here doing skill Well, I don't have anything called skill in my contact details, and realistically, I shouldn't be referencing skills as they're not skills, they're contact details. So I'm going to put in place $ contact details as, and I can say contact. Now in here I'm going to say contact, and the value, if you remember from our database, if I open this up, is detail value. So over here I'd say detail value and save that, and now when I refresh this page I get my values in place. But it is handy to have a bit more of a title around these to make them look a bit more fancy. So I'm going to echo, and again this is going to be a p tag. Could use a heading number if you wanted to use a heading number instead. And in my p tag here then, I'm going to come back out of my p tag and join to it simply contact, and in square bracket, and what did we call it? Detail type. Save that, and when I refresh this, we now have this in place. Something's gone wrong. Let's see what I broke. P, contact detail type, there we go. Yeah, why is email disappeared? And let's have a look. Right. That's very strange. Okay, so let's put it all in one echo instead of two. I would say I'm generally baffled by that one. It shouldn't matter if it's one echo or two, but it does, so I put it into one echo. Never mind. Update, this is going to be, say, contact details. Save that. From my update skills, I'm going to save this as update contact details. And have that in place too. In the similar sort of fashion, we've got delete from, this is going to be contact details, where ID is 1. Insert into contact details. User ID, well, it's not, it is going to be user ID. It's going to be detail type and detail value. Now, we are posting, let's have a look at what we are posting here. We are posting input type text as a skill. Well, this isn't going to be a skill there. This is going to be a different setup. So this is going to be a contact detail type. And that's going to have that there. And we need to also post our detail name. So I need to put in place another echo here, and let's see if this does break it again. If so, I'm going to figure out why. It's going to be an input, but this is going to be a type of input which is hidden, because we don't want the user to have to edit or change this box. Actually, no, we won't do hidden. We'll do input type text again, and the input type text there. Let's bring this all back. Let's change this entirely to back to here. Contact detail type, form control, value detail. Yes, that's fine. And that will be 1. And this will be 2. And there will be detail value here. And this would be type. Because of course, if we're going to add in a contact detail type, we need to be able to say what they are. And I've completely broken something. There, I think. Refresh it. Email, telephone number. Right, let's break this down and see what's going wrong. Why is it not working? Print underscore R $ contact. Detail type, email detail value there, detail type, tell. Okay. For HTTP contact. On my array, I got user ID, detail type. Email tell. Fine. Why is it not doing my second detail contact? I suppose I could still have it as one big echo. But I'm just not sure why that matters. Never mind, that's there. That should now submit, and that would submit to my contact details set up here. And for my contact details, I am just simply a second going to stop all of that so that I can print underscore R $ underscore post again and see what we've got. Don't need those brackets unless I'm specifying what within post I'm looking to bring back. So we have our contact detail type. That is an array with positions 0 and 1. We have a contact detail value with an array of 0 and 1. So if I was to use this same method and use a for each loop, I would have to try and iterate through both of these at the same time. But what I can do instead is just use a simple for loop for, and I'm going to say C equals 0, while C is less than, I'm going to say, for now I'm just going to put in 2. I'm going to say C++, and I'm going to put that in place. I'm going to tell it to echo $ underscore post, and I wanted to echo from its post. That's still going to be an array. It might work like this, we'll see. And we want contact detail type, and I want it at position $C. Not happy on my C. Unexpected equals expecting. Oh, same error. What a surprise. C equals 0. C is it would help if I use variables and not just the letter C. If you got that before I did, well done. Now, if I refresh that, continue, what we're getting is email and tell. It is printing them out. And I could probably say while C is less than 2, there we go, and what's that, under file offset 2, so while C is less than 1, really? No, it should have been less than 2. sim2, and run that. And that gives me email and tel at the end there. That's fine. I could tell it at the same time to echo contact detail instead of type value. Save that and refresh it. I get the tells, I get the numbers, I get all the details put together. That's where I could create my setup here. But this to element here, that's going to cause me some issues a little bit later on. So we're going to deal with that in a couple of seconds time. First of all, let's bring this back into play. Deleting from contact details where user ID is 1. We want to bring this back into play and we need to update it. Insert into contact details, user ID, detail type and element. Now this time around, detail type is contact detail type from our post. So I'm going to copy that and put that in there, which is caused a slight issue because it didn't highlight properly. But if I go like that, it should highlight it all. And I want to do a similar fashion, similar thing again, next to it, but instead of contact detail type, it will be value. And then I need to redirect back to, not skills in this case, it would be contact details. .php. And if I was to go back a page, save it, I come back in the same thing, email address is now saved as email address. And again, if I go onto this page, it now has messed everything up there. Why? Ah, okay, yeah, because I used email as the key term, so that's why it disappeared. So we've got that in place, but I can update my email address and I can update my telephone number now. This too is a bit of an issue. We need to know how many we are being sent in our contact details section here. So how many are in our array. And what we need to do is find out how much in our PHP has in the array in place. And the way we're going to do that is with a simple count command to count the values in the array. And it is going to be counting the values in, where's my count? There it is, that section there. But when that counts those values in the array, what it's actually going to do is start, well, let's double check actually. I'm assuming something, I might be wrong. I am wrong. It does start at 0 and 1, so it goes to 2 as expected rather than 3. So now we have the ability to update the details for our contact details and update the details for our skills. Employment and education, not quite yet, but we do have these details in place and we can log out. So what we're going to do next is log back in with Isabel's details. And we're going to have a look at, like I said earlier, how we can add elements in. So I'm going to go back to my update skills page, the skills page actually, and here's my output. I'm actually going to put in a H2 and I'm going to say update because that's what this option is. That's where we can update our skills. So if I refresh this, we get update. I'm then going to go and recreate most of this actually because we're quite happy with the whole layout of this. So take the whole div section here and paste it below. And instead of update, I say add. And then instead of update skills, I'm going to have a simple add skill. We'll do this on a singular basis. And I do not need this time around to grab any skills that already exist. I actually don't need any PHP for this setup at all. I want my input as a type of skill, singular, no array, and the value is going to be empty. I'm going to get rid of that element there and my final PHP tag and save that. So we get something that looks like this, add skill. She has our skills listed, we can add a skill here, and our code for our add skill is going to be very similar to our update skill. So let's hit the right key command and say add skill. And instead of deleting, so we don't want to delete anything, but we do want our insert, Our insert is going to insert this time round our underscore post, open bracket, our singular skill, and then run that query and bring us right back. Save that, and let's see how that works. So if I said PHP was now a skill she can say she has, PHP appears. If I say PHP development and save, it updates to do that. So I've got my update at the top here and my add down the bottom. You could argue they should be the other way around, and that is completely up to you. And all you have to do to swap them is move that div around to the opposite side. So then we end up with add above update. Nice and simple. Same process goes for our contact details. So if I go into my contact details section, I've got my div row here, copy that, and check one above it. I don't want to grab anything from PHP, so I can get rid of all of that PHP tag. I can get rid of that there. It is going to be contact detail type to start with, and there's the value, and we don't need anything in value. And then I've got my input type, contact detail value, and again I don't need anything in that, and I'm simply going to have my submit. This is going to be, instead of update, it's going to go to add contact detail, and I'm going to have to put a bit more of a description in place. So I'm going to put in here, actually I haven't done my H2s yet, so let's put that in, H2, and I'm going to say add, and down here I'm going to say, again, H2, update, and have that there. There's my submit button. I just want to put in place a P tag here for contact detail type, and one here for value. Now, update contact details. Again, I'm going to save this, save as add contact details. It's going to be a lot of the same thing. I still left that print behind, so let's go into update and remove that print as well. We don't need to print that. I don't want to delete anything this time around. I do want my insert command, and my insert command again is going to change. So we'll have a look at that now and see how that changes. Detail type there and there, post contact detail type. I don't have an array, so it wouldn't be at position C. And the same goes here. It's not a position C, it's just contact detail type. Run that query and take me back to my contact details page. Now I've got an error there. It's not happy with something. I know I've got to do my contact details page because name, yeah, I did remove the array, that's perfectly fine. So insert into contact details user detail type values. And I've got that there. I forgot a full stop. I was overzealous with my deletion. I got rid of too many full stops, and now if I'm on my admin page, contact details page, I can say detail type, so I could say post, I can put in 123 fake street, add, and it appears down the bottom here. So I have that ability in both systems, my skills and my contact details, to be able to add an additional. And you may have noticed in both sections then, I didn't use these menu buttons. Now, there's something I forgot to do when I set these menu buttons up. And it actually works out nicely at the end here. I'm going to put in a little bit of a menu section and show you how we can do that. So, if I go to my admin page has at the top of it my basic PHP section, my head section, and the body section down to my nav. Well, this is going to be on each of my different sections from this point downwards, so let me cut that, for all of my different pages. So I'm going to require, and I'm just going to call this head.php, and I got that there, and close out of PHP to get rid of those errors and save that. I'm then going to create my head.php file. So new PHP file created. I'm going to paste all of that there. This section here is PHP. There we go. And I'm going to save it as head.php, and I can close that off. Now it has head included, connection included, and PHP included. And when I save this and I go to my admin page, it all still looks exactly the same, and it will function as it should do. And what I can do is take this require head.php, I can go into my skills page, and instead of having all of this code at the start, all the way down to my end of my nav section here, I can tell it to require head.php and then close my PHP tag. Now, the advantage of doing this, and let's do this with contact details as well, is primarily updating. And save that there. Now if I go to my contact details page, I can now go through to my skills page because they're all using the same menu bar. I've got that in place with all of them, so I can jump between them. So I can jump between each of these elements, and if I went through and I did set up my employment or education pages, I could just link them once and that would link through correctly. Now I've got my contact details, I've got my skills section here. The only thing I haven't really got is the ability to delete any of these. And that's what we're going to do as the last part for this tutorial. So in my skills page, I have in place my echo for my different element here. I got my value, and what I'm going to do here, after I've done this, is I want to put in place my delete icon. And I'm going to use a font awesome icon again. And I'm going to go for bin. Let's go binoculars. Okay, let's try be less obvious. Delete, that's American, isn't it? Let's get a trash can. Let's copy that code there. So I'm going to copy it into here. And inside my echo, just by here, I'm going to paste it. Now, as I'm using single quotes, I have to use single quotes here, otherwise it causes issues. And now I shouldn't have any issues. Save it, and let's have a look. That was on my skills page, how it looks. It's come just off the side here. We need to reduce down the width of these ever so slightly. So I'm going to say in here somewhere, when I decide where, and let's say width equals, can we just say can I just do simply 90% there? Is that going to work? No. If I inspect that then, that has, let's have a look at this here, properties to it, form control. One of the properties form control has is width of 100%. I don't want width of 100%, I want width of say 90%, which will allow me, or should allow me, to have my deletion icon next to it. I could always place that inside the value. I'll refresh that. Value equals that there. No, I can't do that because that'll always appear. Okay. Okay. that's how we could do this. That's how we could tackle this instead, and that would work quite nicely. Don't need that there, that there, does need that, and does need that, and that. Okay, there, let's get rid of those as well. Never mind, we'll come back to that in a second. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change this up a little bit, because we are echoing here, but I'm going to come out of PHP. So let's just put these in our round bracket, our curly braces, cut this into here, and I'm going to come out of PHP by here, just above it. And why I'm coming out of PHP is to set up a table instead. So using a HTML table, what I can do is give it a table row, and I can give it 2 TDs, so table decoration, 1 and 2. And inside there then, inside my table elements, I'm going to loop through and display those. So my echo, let's just put that there, that's all looking perfectly fine. I cut this and paste it inside there and save it. When I now refresh this, it shows me nothing. What have I done wrong? That there. Echo input, there we go. I don't want the width now. Form control, value equals scale, and there. Okay. My row is there. Okay, so I want a row, I want a cell, so a TR, a TD, and I want my input inside of that. And then I want to close off my TD, which should still be part of my echo. Thank you. And then I want to close off my table row. And I don't need these here, or that there either. And refresh. Getting closer. Input type, there we go. Let's remove our value for a second. Have I only got one skill? No, I've got more than one skill, so I should have a loop through there. There's my table. There's my table. For each skill as skill, echo, table row, table D, table row. Sometimes it's the simple things that break everything. Okay, so value, there we go. Right, so we have that in our form control, we have all of that set up. What I can also do then, because I've put that in place, is now put in a /TD, and inside there, I can put in place my font awesome trash can. Remembering that we are in the middle of an echo, so we have to use single tags. And we'll end up with our trash can on the side there. Now we can say that this row here its width is equal to, in single quotes, let's say 90%, and that should give us a wider row there. Doesn't seem to want to make a blind bit of difference. And that hasn't updated that. Well, in fact it has, it's this one by here, width is 90%. I may need to put in the above rows width as well to tell it that that's 100%. Nope, it doesn't like that, it's not happy with that, but to be fair, I'm perfectly fine with that. I want to make these clickable though. These are going to become ahrefs, and they are going to reference, or they're going to link to a delete element. So I'm going to link it to // delete skill.php. And if I refresh this now, that's there. If I click on delete skill.php, it's not going to work because it hasn't been programmed. I haven't told it it exists. But I do want to include with that the skill is equal to, and then whatever's in my value section here. So I do need this here. Now we spoke earlier, I went through earlier super globals with get and with our posts. So this is going to be a get command. And in here then, so I've got my skills in this section here. I'm going to create, using my add skill as an example, a delete skill. So I'm going to say delete from skills. This time I'm going to use a where user ID is equal to 1 and an and, so two combinations have to be met. Skill is equal to whatever's being getted. Run that and go back to skills. That's add skill. Let's save that, and let's save that as delete skill, and let's undo those changes in add skill so that add skill still works. So now if I go back, branding was my skill. Branding is a skill, it's my second skill. If I click on delete skills, I come back, I didn't delete branding. Why didn't I delete branding? No spaces, it should have been removed. Let's have a look at my delete skill. Delete from skills, is it skills? It is skills where user ID equals 1. Let's chuck that in there just in case. And skill, it is skill equals get skill, and that's there. But I have a bracket. That has thrown PHP off. And now if I delete branding, branding disappears. I can add PHP, I can delete PHP. Doesn't matter which order they're in, I can now delete skills by using that method. So let's have a look and do the same thing for our contact details. A bit more complicated because contact details takes up 2 elements, not just 1. But let's put that in place. So contact details, here it is. Our form is here for our contact details. Let's come down to this section here then. We want to come out of PHP and we're going to go back into PHP, remembering the tag so I don't spend ages trying to fix an error that's not there. Build our table. Our table doesn't need anything fancy to it. And cut that, paste that there. Our table has in place a table row, a table decorate, and at the end here we're going to say end table decorate, end table row. And just like we did in our skills, I'm going to add this in. So let's tidy it up so it looks nicer. Indent it there. Here's one input. It's that element there. There's the second input. Then the end of our TD. We're going to have our new TD for that. It's going to end there, and we're going to end our table row. So if I go to contact details, got a bit of an error. Undefined variable on line 38. Skill, that's why. So I want to delete the detail type. So as you can see there, they are paired together, and we have one delete button. They're paired together, one delete button. They're paired together, one delete button. In my form, it isn't a form. Catch myself there. We're not using forms for this one. We're using our delete in here contact detail. And just like we did with our add, we're going to open up the add contact details. First thing, save it as delete contact details. Save it, and we're going to say in here, delete from contact details where user ID is equal to something, detail type, and detail type is equal to something. Value is going to be irrelevant here. We've got our element there. We can say that fella is, and say contact detail type is, and not post, but get contact detail type, and that will be enough. We do probably want single quotes though. Dot. There you go. Dot. Go. Delete from contact details where user ID is 1 and contact detail type. That should be that side of that. Is contact detail type. Last one then, in my contact details section here, I have said ahref skill, it should be contact detail type, and now that's there. So with that in place, if I refresh this, I've got my post here. If I click this, post should be deleted. It didn't like contact detail type. I'll delete contact detail. Did I pluralize it? There I did, contact details rather than in detail. So on here, contact detail, let's pluralize it, save it, and let's make sure we go back to, we're going back to contact details. Back page, delete post, post is gone. So we're now able to add, edit, and delete our contact details and skills. This was only planned to be a one-part video. We're already on part 2. Chances are, and I'm guaranteeing, there's going to be 3 parts. It could go as far as 4 if we do picture manipulation, if it's a bit more difficult than I was expecting. Okay, thank you for watching. As always, if you do find these in any way helpful, please like and subscribe to the channel just to help me out a little bit there.